While this summer has been dominated by large AAA mobile games, here are 14 of the best new games, large and small, that you don't want to miss this month. And as always, a giveaway for a fantastic new indie game is waiting toward the end of the video. Up first this week is Arena Breakout, which is a tactical shooter with controller support that I know many have looked forward to. It's made by the developers of Call of Duty Mobile, and it's basically a multiplayer looter shooter heavily inspired by the PC game Escape from Tarkov. This means we basically equip weapons and armor from our bank, join a match, and then try to get out alive with as much loot as possible. It's a super hardcore and tactical game, and if you die during one of these matches, your loot and equipment is gone for good, and you'll just have to buy new stuff from other players again. What surprised me the most though is that unlike Undawn, which is made by the same developer, everything about Arena Breakout is super polished, and the game was also overall just a lot more fun than I thought it would be. Now, the monetization does allow paying players to gain ammo and weapons faster, but I still think the free-to-play experience is fantastic in this game, so it's an easy recommendation. A few months ago, we also got one of the only large-scale single-player monster-catching action RPGs to release this year, called Volzerk. The gameplay here essentially consists of completing story quests and freely exploring the open world to defeat monsters and collect loot so we grow stronger. The thing to know about this game though is that there are over 450 monsters to collect, and we can even crossbreed them to create unique new versions. But on the other hand, the biggest downside is that the endgame crossbreeding is locked behind story missions that make a large part of the early game feel a bit stale. But if you've been looking for a real-time action RPG with controller support and no PvP to deal with, Volzerk is pretty interesting. It monetizes via in-app purchases for stronger characters, but the game can easily be completed as a free player, and you can read more about it over on fellow YouTuber Gaming in the Moment's review in my app Min Review. Now, back in May this year, Lost Words Beyond the Page also released, and it's a beautiful story-driven adventure platforming game that is played on the pages, on the literal pages, of a young girl's diary. I really don't want to spoil the story for you guys, but the gameplay is split into jumping between words on the pages of this diary, and then a second part where we play as a sorceress on a journey to defeat a ruthless dragon. These two different parts of the game intertwine perfectly, and the super polished gameplay experience is easily worth its $6 asking price. But if you're on the edge, the first two chapters are also free to try on both Android and iOS. Moving on to a lightning round of 3 really cool games that I haven't tried yet, the very newest game today is Bug Heroes Tower Defense, which is in early access on Android and iOS. It's a 3D tower defense game made by the developers of War Tortoise and Heroes and Castles, which are, by the way, pretty neat games on their own, so I'm excited to try this one next month. On August 7th, we also got a new game in the Slaughter series of 3D action games, and this one truly looks like a love letter to early 2000s PC games, in all the best ways, so it's definitely worth checking out. And talking about old school inspired games, Stone Story RPG is out now on both mobile and PC, and the early user reviews are super positive, so I think a lot of you are gonna just love this one. Without a doubt, the best game I've played this month though is Roto Force, which is a run-and-gun twin-stick shooter with incredible boss designs, great humor, and a neat, ever-changing retro art style. The game is split into missions with 11 rounds of attacks that we have to survive by defeating all the enemies and bosses. But whenever we run left and right to move around the inside of these one-screen maps, the entire level rotates alongside us, and it just creates an awesome gameplay experience. Best of all though, the game is free to try for the first mission with a $5 in-app purchase unlocking the full game, and this is also the game you can win a key for at the end of this video. Now, as I mentioned in my last video about the best new mobile games, Undawn also released recently, but now that I've had some time to actually dive into it, I do not think it's worth really spending time on this one, so as a quick update, I suggest you just skip it. A game I did enjoy this month though is Unhappy Raccoon, which, to be honest, isn't brand new anymore, but it is a fun roguelike hack-and-slash RPG with randomly generated worlds, highly customizable characters, and challenging bosses. And you guys know I love those roguelike action RPGs, so I just had to include it here. There is a lot to unlock in this game as you progress though, which is both its biggest advantage for those of us who enjoy that type of thing, and at the same time the largest downside for those who don't like the grinding. It's a free-to-play game with $3 in-app purchases to unlock the last 2 out of 6 heroes, and additional purchases for weapons that cannot be acquired through gameplay. unfortunately. I still enjoyed it as a free player though, so I think it's worth considering checking out. Jumping right back into another quick lightning round though, Little Big Workshop also got ported over to mobile recently. It's a simulation management game where you manage workers, stations, and machines, and it has amazing reviews over on Steam, so I know many of you are gonna enjoy this one. On June 16th, the long-awaited follow-up to Oxenfree also released. This is a mystery thriller adventure game, and while it is available exclusively as a Netflix game on mobile, it's also out on Steam as a standalone title if you've got a PC to play it on. One of the more fun and somewhat silly releases recently is Lock Be a Landlord, which is a roguelike deck builder about using slot machines to earn rent and defeat capitalism. Count me in, I guess. There's no real-world gambling in this game, so if you enjoy roguelike deck builders and fun indie games, I think this is a perfect mix. A somewhat more serious card game also released not long ago called Beecarbonize. This is a resource management strategy game inspired by Cultist Simulator and tabletop games, and it was recently covered on my games discovery platform MinReview. So the playing field in this game consists of 4 sectors that generate resource tokens and emissions whenever their timers reach 0. Our job is to deal with that by spending resources to add new cards to those sectors, which in turn unlocks even more advanced cards. The gameplay loop is great fun, and the game is, surprisingly, completely free to play without any ads or in-app purchases. In June this year, we also got Magic and Machines, which is an adventure role-playing game reminiscent of early JRPGs like the first few Final Fantasy and Phantasy Star games. From the dungeons and turn-based battles to the menus and towns, everything is neatly designed in this game, so even though it only takes a few hours to complete, it's a great experience throughout that journey. The biggest downside is that although the menu controls are great, controlling our character does take a bit to get used to, and there is no Bluetooth controller support. It is still just a great game though, and at only $2, it's an easy recommendation for any fan of JRPGs. Now, when I reached out to the developer of Roto Force to ask if they wanted to provide some keys for a giveaway, they were super kind and provided no less than 10 keys for you guys. So now all you have to do is to reply to my latest tweet, or X, now I guess, my latest X, that I've linked down below using the word Force, and the first 10 replies with the word Force in them gets one of the keys. Check out this video next for the best action roguelikes without pay to win, and I'll see you there in a bit.